Welcome to the Music Ed Matters podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Williams-Birch, and this podcast, it exists for you. Whether you're a music lover, an educator, a choir member, each week we bring guests to the show to help explore what matters in music. I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to the show. Hello, and welcome to the Music Ed Matters podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Williams-Birch, and this is episode 136 with my friend, Jim Gaven. Jim is the founder and CEO of Key of Awesome Music. Don't worry, in the episode we talk about where that name came from. In this conversation, Jim tells us how he got into music, and it's really fun and non-traditional and super inspiring. In fact, I took a few notes that I want to make sure to share with you. It all started because he had an injury, and he taught himself how to play guitar, and later taught himself piano and ukulele and a bunch of other instruments. He even taught himself sign language. But what I love is something he says towards the end of the conversation, and you'll have to hear the whole thing for hear it in context. But he said his entire life in music has been an improvisation. But that's life, learning how to pivot and adapt. And the organization, the Key of Awesome Music, the company he owns today, is all about that, bringing that joy of music and that power of music and how music can positively impact lives to people of all different types. You should totally check out Key of Awesome Music on Instagram and Facebook, but that's enough talking for me. This episode is brought to you by our friends at the Kennison Choral Company and Kaleidoscope Adventures, because music's awesome and you can go on adventures with music. But I have talked way too much. Let's hear from our new friend, Jim Gaven, the Key of Awesome Music. Today on the Music Ed Matters podcast, we are talking to my new friend, Jim Gaven. Hey, Jim.
What's going on, Emily? Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited for this conversation. First, thank you for reaching out, y'all. Jim used the contact section of the website. Thank you so much. It is so awesome when people do that. It makes me feel excited to have a website and pumped that you thought to say, hey, so hi.
Hey there. Yep.
So tell the listeners, who is Jim Gaven? What is it that you do? You have to tell us all about this Key of Awesome Music.
Oh boy. So do you want the short story or do you want
I want as much as you want to talk. It's like a live conversation.
Cool. So we'll go back to where I first got into music in the way that I a little bit in the kind of way that I do it now. So got into music, listening to it as a kid. But what really happened was an injury that I had in high school. I was all sports up until a certain point. And I was playing soccer and I broke my tibia in a soccer game. And this is where my musical story really starts. I was 16, and in the time I was hurt, I didn't know what to do with myself because I was so used to, all right, after school sports, and then games, it was all just like, that was what my life was. And now I'm like, well, after school, I can't play sports. I have to, go to physical therapy. I have to just sit and relax. And I didn't do well with that. I still don't do well with that. So in that time, my dad had this old, beat up guitar in the dining room that I never really saw him play much. It was just kind of there. And I said, maybe I could, get into this. And so I asked my dad to teach me a couple chords, and he did a couple very simple chords. And I just went from there. Instead of playing soccer or basketball or baseball at that point, I was dedicating all of my free time outside of school to learning the guitar on my own. So I'm self-taught, on many instruments, but it started with guitar. And I just fell in love with it. And that period of trying to figure out things. So a little bit also about me is I don't know how to read music even to this day. I never learned how to. I can look at something and kind of visualize where to put my fingers, and it was a lot of trial and error, and it was a lot of fun. And I would spend 3 to 4 hours every night after school in this 3-month period just playing guitar, building the calluses that you might see on my hands, and actually would literally play till my fingers would chafe and bleed because I was so, but it didn't matter to me because I was just I was so into it and wanting to learn this riff from a particular song or learn this song. And so that's where my story really starts with music. And I just kept pursuing it. I started learning a bunch of cover songs. I went to college. I started playing open mic nights. I started writing my own music. And then at that point, I was like really still back. I got back into soccer. Soccer was my main love as a sport. And so I was living kind of parallel soccer, music. And it got to a point where, okay, I made a decision. Am I going to be, can I do music until I'm 90, right? Probably. Mm-hmm. Can I do soccer till I'm 90? Probably not.
Probably not.
And so I started thinking like that, and okay, well, maybe I'm just going to, really focus on music. And so, outside of college, I ended up having my own solo project for many years, even to this day, writing songs, whatever's kind of inspiring me, and mostly on acoustic guitar, but, I've written a few songs on piano and ukulele as main instruments, and joined a couple other bands. So I've been in a couple bands, and that kind of got to a point where I was doing music on the side a lot and working different jobs throughout this. And it got to a point where I was working in New York City. I only live about an hour from New York. I take the train every day. And I worked in New York for 3 years at this music company, but I was behind a computer all day and feeling like I didn't have a soul, honestly. It was one of those like crunch number jobs. And like, that's for some people, but I learned quickly that it wasn't for me. I thought that maybe it would lead somewhere because it's New York and maybe I could meet people. And I did meet a few people, in the industry, but at the end of the day, I was feeling like I really didn't have much meaning and purpose in my life. And I went on this like soul searching episode for a while and trying to find out, well, what can I do to like get out of New York and do something that matters and talk to people and be interactive and be direct and engaging. And my mom mentioned, why don't you just try sending your resume out to some nonprofits? Usually they're tied to good causes. So I started researching different nonprofits in the county I lived in and around New Jersey. That's where I'm from. Started volunteering at this group home for adults with special needs and absolutely fell in love with it. Had nothing to do with music. I was just going there to help out around the house and do fun events and that they would do around the house. And I brought my keyboard and my guitar one time on this volunteer thing, and everybody like fell in love with it. Like the room fell silent. I was like super inspired with that moment. Something just hit me in a different way than playing any other gig up until that point. And I was like, this is it. I think this is what I got to do in my life. I think this is what I got to try to find a way to marry this idea of helping people in need and combining it with music. And sprayed my resume around a bunch and ended up getting a position at this place called the ARC. And it's adults for, they support adults with developmental disabilities. And they didn't have a music program and they took a chance on me. And I started there working full time, having barely any experience in the human services field, just volunteering for 3 months at a group home, and started a music program from scratch, and it was amazing. And was there for 4 years, and then it was time to go. And then I worked at another nonprofit, did the same type of work, just on a grander scale. Instead of just one county, I was in almost every county in our state. I was pretty much driving all around the state. Felt like I was on tour every day, kind of. We had group homes and day programs all over the place. And so I would be driving from here to this part of the state, to the north, to back again. It was kind of fun, kind of wild at the same time. And then it got to a point where, maybe I've made enough contacts that it could be time for me to branch out on my own. And it was kind of almost in a way forced upon me at the company I was at right before I went off on my own. The management approached me and said that, we can't really afford to pay for your position anymore. I said, oh, okay. Well, they wanted me to stay on, but be behind the desk at the main office. And I was like, no, that's not why I got into this field. So I had about 6 weeks to kind of figure out what I'm going to do. So I just took a whole bunch of meetings and emailed people and was doing a whole bunch of research online, and decided that in that 6-week period, I was really going to try to go for this on my own. And brings us to where we are today. I've been doing this for 4.5 years on my own. And I have 3 part-time contracted employees now. So it's
Wow.
been something. So that's where we are now. And the name Key of Awesome Music, which is, some people ask, where did that come from?
That
It's
was
actually
going to be my next question. I'm dying to know.
Yeah. So it was an inside joke initially with one of the bands that I was in. We never had a bass player in my one band I was in. The band was called Postmark Twain. And so we had like, it was me, played rhythm guitar. We had an electric guitar lead guy. We had somebody that would just sing and sometimes play acoustic. And then there was our drummer, but we never had like a solid bass player. We'd always like hire somebody out to do recordings. I wasn't comfortable enough on the bass at that point in my life to, maybe even in the studio, I didn't feel confident enough to even lay down bass tracks at that point. Now I do, but not back then. So we had somebody fill in at a show once, and I decided, well, he asked me, the bass or fill-in bassist asked, what key is the song in? And as a sarcastic, I said, it's in the key of awesome, man. And it just came out. I don't know. I was just being like a silly dude at that point. And, that name has stuck with me ever since. And I thought, wow, how cool would that be if I just like named my company Key of Awesome Music? It kind of is just like supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be, engaging. It's supposed to be welcoming. And I thought, what a cool way to name a company, and based off of an inside joke.
I love it.
Yeah.
The Key of Awesome. It removes so much of the barriers and the hurdles. I think that's what I love most about your story, which, thanks for sharing it. You kept showing up. You got injured, you put your time and energy into something, and you had no one to teach you, but you just found the answers. And here you are 4.5 years later, you had no one to be like, make a business this way. But you're like, I made a business. It's Key of Awesome Music. That's so much fun.
The fun part about it, a lot of the fun part about it for me with having my own business is meeting new people. I really like networking and going into a group of people I don't know. It's really fun for me. Now, some people don't like that at all, and I get that. But for me, it's really fun. And I think I've just been kind of grooming myself to this point. When you're a musician, you kind of have to get used to networking with other musicians. You kind of have to, if you're going to play a gig, you're going to be in front of a bunch of people you don't know. So like in a way, I was doing all this stuff before I went off on my own, not realizing I was building these like skills, like interpersonal skills, communication skills, working on the fly, having to figure things out in real time. And I do that every day and then some right now with my business, because, I could be running a whole bunch of sessions, and then I got to be in touch with my part-time employees, and then I got to talk to a support coordinator or case manager about this individual, and I got to take phone calls from new people, and it's just so many things that could come and go in a given day.
Okay, so I want to go back to this whole talking and loving to meet people. I also love networking and meeting people. It feeds my soul. Yeah. Do all of your part-time employees have that same passion?
Not necessarily. One of them does. One of them for sure does. One of them I met at an open mic night years ago, and that's how we kind of got connected. And I thought, this person's amazing. I think that they would be great in doing what we're doing. And I sort of just used my network of musician friends I met along the way to help do what we do here, running sessions. The two other ones I have are great people. They're just a little bit more on the reserved, keep to myself, more quiet type personality, and that's completely fine. So we have me and one other person who's way more outgoing and kind of in your face, and then the other two kind of balance it out in that way. I see it like that.
Okay, so for someone listening that's like, I'm on the more reserved side, but I like this idea of starting my own thing, what advice would you give to someone who's like, I'm a little bit intimidated by meeting new people or networking? What's your go-to thing?
I mean, I always just try to be more interested in what the other someone else has to say. I feel like you can always go into a conversation and somebody might be able to teach you something that you never knew before. And I just ask questions, and this is how what I do with the individuals I meet for the first time. If I have a first time session with somebody, I don't know anything about them other than they have a special need. And I just say, hey, like, who's your favorite artist? Like, who's your favorite musician? And we start the conversation that way. Oh, what's your favorite song? And so I ask questions, not necessarily like that, but simple questions that are fun when engaged with somebody new. If you ask how you doing, that's kind of such a standard question that people will kind of blow it off, and they're like, yeah, good. It's kind of like a standard, just being kind of courteous to somebody, but not really getting into like a question that, oh, I have to think a little bit about this. I don't know what my favorite song is, or my top 3 favorite songs. Or it's about asking poignant questions and being a little bit, really, well, not a little bit, but really interested in what the other person has to say. And that's helped me a lot. Is that opens up a dialogue, and then they'll ask me something, and then it's like boom, 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 and we're off to the races in a conversation, rather than, how you doing? Good, cool, all right, bye. Because you've been in conversations like that before, like in passing, and
Yes.
it's like, it doesn't get anywhere,
Yeah. The poignant questions, and then caring about the answers. That's so key. Well, you've totally piqued my interest, and I think you've hinted at it a little bit, but I want more details. What exactly does Key of Awesome Music do?
So we mostly spend time with those who have developmental disabilities, adults, and now more children, doing group sessions where I would go into a day program or a group home, or possibly like a community center or something along those lines that they rent out. And I run a usually 30 to 45 minutes, sometimes an hour, but that's pushing it, session where it involves sing-along songs, some silly vocal warm-ups to get to like break the ice. I bring a whole bag of percussion instruments with me, like small maracas and egg shakers and tambourines. I pass them out. I do guided percussion activity in addition to the sing-along songs. And then I actually incorporate sign language into it through song, because I think it's a great skill. I don't know a ton of it myself. I just know enough for like a dozen songs to kind of get everybody to participate. Like I come into groups where there's some people that don't know how to talk, or they're nonverbal, or they have a difficult time communicating. And this allows them in a way to participate that they might not be able to hold an instrument, but they can sign a little bit, or they might not be able to sing, but they can sign. So I try to get all these 3 facets into a group session. Sometimes, so mostly that's with the developmentally disabled adults and children. I also do, well, not just me, but we do library programs for children. Like, you show up at a library and just do fun sing-along kids songs, and a lot of action and movement in there, passing out instruments. I do one-on-one private lessons. Our company does that too. That's anywhere teaching mainly guitar, piano, and voice, and some percussion. Still split fair amount virtual and in person these days, which I never thought would be a thing. No, I don't think anybody really thought that would be a thing when it's grown from the pandemic. And we also do programs at nursing homes and assisted living facilities for those who have Alzheimer's and dementia. And that's just playing oldies, fun songs, trying to, ask questions to some of the elderly, and just kind of make them chuckle and maybe think of a simpler time in their life. And we also do group work with those who have addiction and issues and are going through the recovery process. And to me, that's a really exciting space that's relatively new in the last maybe 3 years. So I've been in the human services field for 12 years, but the most recent thing that I've been doing, and that one of my employees helps out with, is the drug and alcohol recovery space. So that's, in a nutshell, that's a lot to take in. I know. We really just want to use music to help people. And I've reached out to soup kitchens. We've done one-off things for soup kitchens and homeless shelters, just to kind of just be a fun entertainment sort of thing for the people that show up to those places. And I'm not opposed to really going into any space where the people want music to improve their day, and maybe let loose and forget about the craziness of the world for a while.
I love how you are taking you remember the fun part of music in all the ways. Like, so often, I think when we're doing music every single day, we can get bogged down in some of the nitty gritty details. But
Yeah,
what you're reminding us is music is an enhancer to life. It's a life improver.
yeah,
And this is backwards a second. I'm guessing you taught yourself sign language?
I did. Yes.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
you
Cool.
could just do it online. You could. I just use YouTube. And
Yeah.
that's the beauty of YouTube and many things that we have online. And yeah, I've taught myself every instrument that I play and a small a little bit of sign language. I'm no expert at sign language. I'm like very much at the beginning, but it's a fun element. I started picking up on when I worked at Allies, which is the company I was at before I branched off on my own. I found there was a big need for people. I ran into enough individuals there that just couldn't really sing to the extent that I wanted them to, and or participate with a percussion instrument. Like, I got to try something else with some of these people. So I need that seemed to find a way to break through to,
I
to the
love it.
ones that to the ones that couldn't maybe do singing or playing along with an instrument.
You're
Yeah,
constantly problem solving and figuring out ways that music can be a part of the people that you're in front of. And it sounds like you're
yeah,
open to so many opportunities. As I'm sitting here listening, I'm thinking, wow, these are so many great places that people could take their kiddos to perform. What a great opportunity for the different types of collaborations to happen. It's such
yeah.
a space. Now, I've never, because I'm always in the education world, I've never heard the term human services. So is that just anything to do with, like, can you explain that a little more?
Sure. I mean, it's kind of a interesting term in my mind too, because it's like, well, isn't like everything human services, right? Because like we're all trying to serve humans, but it's the term that's given to working mainly with those who have developmental disabilities or special needs. It's just that's like you if you ever hear of the Department of Human Services, it usually the developmentally disabled adults and children kind of fall under that umbrella, if you will. That's really all it is. Um, so it's one of those terms that I don't know if it's misused, but I just have always referred to it like that since I've been in the field. That's like somebody had brought that up to me when I first started in this field. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And unfortunately, I've been to a lot of places that they forget that. They forget that we're serving humans, and it doesn't seem like that. But I've met enough places and enough people that have it right, and they really do it right and have the right intentions in mind. So
Speaking of intentions, let's say someone's listening and they want to connect with you or have your group come out and do something for virtual or in person or whatever. What are some of the ways that people contract you out? How are you found?
I mean, our website for sure, it's been getting a lot more traction lately. Like you said, the contact page on yours, people are using the contact page on ours because I get like unsolicited requests all the time, which is cool. I mean, I like it because it lets me know, oh my, okay, guess the website's working.
Mm-hmm.
um, and and so you can go to keyofawesomemusic.com. That's one space. We're also listed under different counties in New Jersey. They have like a online resource place. So like Mercer County Resource and Burlington County Resource, or I think it's like Mercer County Resource Net, and we're listed as a approved provider. We're a qualified provider in the state of New Jersey, so that's how people find us too. We have like a vendor ID. If you were to search out like service providers in New Jersey for music, we'd probably pop up. Different ways to search us online, and like I do a lot of posting on Facebook and Instagram. Every day something goes on Instagram at least once a day, and that gets posted to Facebook and Twitter. And that's just
What's your Instagram handle? Is it Key
yeah,
of
it's just Key of Awesome Music. Yeah, it's one word, Key of Awesome Music. The same thing for Facebook. If you were to look us up, you'd find our logo. Um, I have it right here.
Oh, look at you go.
That business card. Um, those are ways that people will get in touch with us, and it's really been neat. We've been getting a lot of referrals actually recently from a support coordination agency that basically they work as case managers or case workers to connect service providers like us and those seeking services like individuals who have behavior supports plan or some sort of plan that gets put into their improving their quality of life, let's say. That happens to be pretty much our tagline too. Improve the quality of life with music. That's what Gave Us in Music sort of falls under. Yeah, I mean, if you couldn't tell, I get really excited about talking about what we do because it's been a huge part of my life for 12 years now. And it put me on this whole other trajectory, just what a simple volunteer thing did for me.
I think that's so cool. Like hearing how you got into music and the self-motivation to learn something. So when I teach a bunch of non-music ed classes, like I teach history of rock and roll and history of film and all sorts of random music classes, but it's impossible in an introduction class to cover everyone's favorite band or everyone's favorite style or everyone's favorite film or anything. So I always have a project that's a semester-long project. Teaser, you can do it all in one night. It's really not a semester-long project, but it's designed so as you're going through the semester. Anyway, one of the options they have is to learn an instrument. And the number of kids that are like, I want to get 100 for learning how to play, I don't know, the harmonica or the ukulele or the guitar. And it is always so fun, the kids that take advantage of that and say, I've always wanted to get a grade for that. I've always wanted to learn this. I might as well get 100 for learning it. And you just did it all by yourself. Like that is such a cool reminder that music is fun. You have to learn, but it's fun.
Music is fun. And I think this goes along with any area. And I think about this a lot. Any industry, any subject, anything you're interested in, you got to just find what you like. So like if I want to play music and I've always wanted to play music, well, start by learning a song that you really like. Don't learn like, I don't know, this is just my advice. Like, I know people want to get classically trained and that's great. But what if a child doesn't want to learn Bach? But what if a child wants to learn how to play like the newest Imagine Dragons song or something? Maybe that's a better start for that child, is to get them really interested and hooked on, I really like this band. I want to learn this song from this band. And that can set them on their way rather than trying to force someone to, oh, you have to learn this Mozart piece and you have to learn it exactly in time. Yes, there's a time and place for that, but it kind of sucks the fun out of it. It just does.
You have to meet those people where they are. And that's a great example that you've given us too, because here you're meeting people with developmental disabilities and different types of memory care and different types of addiction, and you're meeting them where they are. And man, I work with a group of older people that all have either Parkinson's or memory loss as part of our outreach for our community group. And a couple weeks ago, they were doing we always start with breath and body warm-ups, real similar to what you do. We were doing Take 5. And at the end, I asked, do you remember where you heard this first? And this one wonderful soul piped up and was like, in a jazz club in the Northeast. But I can't remember if I was dating this person or this person, and they had the same name. I married one of them. I was like, let's go with that one. You were on a date with that one. But the stories that you get when you play a song, and they don't talk that much until you play something that brings back a slew of memories.
Yeah,
and
it's amazing.
So much fun to hear those stories. The same is true with my grandma. Oh, she's like my best friend. I was playing a song for her, prepping for our outreach this week, and she just went into a whole story because it was her high school song with my grandpa. And I would have never known that. I think that's so good. It's find where they are, meet them there, what they'll like. Yeah.
And that
where do you find all your music?
Like the stuff that I listen to?
Well, let's do both. The stuff you use and the stuff you listen to.
The stuff I use for sessions, it's again, it depends on what the person is interested in. If I'm doing an individual lesson, let's say, right, and it's somebody I haven't met before, one of the first questions, like I said, I ask them is like what their favorite artist is, what their favorite song is. If they can't pick one, what about your top 3, your top 5? And usually people can give me a few songs. And then that's what I use with them. If I go into a new group, I've learned over time that there's certain artists that work really well for adults who have developmental disabilities. What I found is, and again, this is just my experience. It doesn't have to be like this across the board for everybody who has developmental disability, but Michael Jackson always goes really well. I mean, I think it's because it's not just the singing; it's the whole package. It's the dancing. It's like the stuff he wears. It's very theatrical. That always goes over really well. Disney, Broadway show tunes also go over very well for children and young and adults who have special needs. Again, very theatrical, cartoon-esque, singing, dancing, fantasy world. It kind of meets that, like, oh, this is fun. It's like it's fun. It's the fun music. And I've also found with older developmentally disabled adults, Johnny Cash actually goes over very well. And so does Elvis. And the Beatles.
Yeah.
And the Beatles.
Elvis always. Have you had any success with the Beach Boys? I have had massive success with Beach Boys.
Yeah, the Beach Boys go over pretty well too.
But nothing like Elvis. Elvis, especially with Elvis right now, man.
Yeah. Elvis, with those who have developmental disabilities, in my experience, it's really been those artists. It's been Elvis, Johnny Cash, Michael Jackson, Broadway, show tunes, musicals, things of that nature. And, there's one-off singles. If I go into a nursing home, it's any oldie, or patriotic song or song that has to do with the holidays. I mean, I could sing a whole set of patriotic songs just randomly, like even if it's not like Veterans Day or like July 4th, and everybody knows all the words. Yeah, so I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna do that today. Or I feel like I'm inspired to, we're just gonna sing a Frank Sinatra tune, a song from Hank Williams, because I've learned that they like that. This guy named Engelbert Humperdinck is another guy that people like. And so I've learned all these crazy one-off singles just by asking questions and, even asking the employees and the staff that are there, like, hey, what do these people really like if I go there for the first time,
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay. And I just have my phone at my disposal. Just look it up on Google. Or if I don't know it, I take a quick listen to it. I'm not opposed to playing a song I've never heard before in my entire life in the moment, right then and there. Because I could just take my phone out and just listen to it. And I can, let me figure out the chords. Give me 2 minutes. I'm going to study it and then I'm going to play it. And I don't even know if the whole song sounds the way it does, but I like doing that because it kind of meets people where they are. They're like, oh my gosh, this guy just learned a song for me right now. It's connecting. Yeah. Right away. And usually a lot of people that have never heard a song, at least I've seen it. Oh, I don't know that one. Could we, and sometimes that happens too. I'm like, I'm not sure. I don't know that one. Can we try this other song by the same artist? Or can we try this other song by a different artist, but it's kind of like the same band? And so you try to compromise and barter with them about, what song we could play at the time. As far as songs that I listen to, I've gone through a whole musical evolution in my life. I started off listening to a lot of classic rock and heavy metal when I first got into music. Then it got into the singer-songwriter emo sort of phase. And then it transitioned into what I listen to now, which is a lot of Christian inspirational music. It's just what speaks to me. Songs a lot about faith. It's been speaking to me really ever since my son's been born. I mean, having a child has completely changed my life in a good way.
Changed your listening perspective too.
Yeah,
that's awesome. This is so fun. You know what I really enjoy, Jim? It's always neat to have these conversations and hear other people's lived experiences and what got them into music. But what's so inspiring about your story is that you just do it. And you find ways, like you said, I want to inspire you to do great things as I've been inspired. And that whole catchphrase, those are such great reminders that music is there to enhance and empower and positively impact your life. It's such a good reminder to hear that.
I mean, it's my truth. Everybody has their truth. And my truth has definitely been that, I didn't always know this, but now I do, is that music is the gift that I was given. I don't know how to read music. I don't know any theory, but I can play a whole bunch of songs and a whole bunch of different instruments. and have learned songs out of nowhere just by listening. And I know that not everybody can do this. I've learned this over time. But again, I basically have lived my entire musical life in a state of improvisation. And I think that's what has been helping so much with me and having my own business, is that there's a lot of things that get thrown at you that are unexpected. And that's life too. It's like you just have to learn how to pivot, how to deal with it, how to be flexible, how to change things if you need to. And it's not always the easiest, but again, I feel like my life since I was 16 was when I really got into music, is when I broke my leg or tibia. And ever since then, my musical life transitioned into my regular life of just being in a state of improvisation all the time. And so I'm not afraid of it. I've embraced it at this point. I think if I have a superpower, I think everybody has a superpower. I think everybody does.
Yeah.
I think maybe mine is like being able to adapt to a whole bunch of different things and just being super flexible with things in life and in music. Music, I do believe at this point, music is one of the gifts I was given, and I don't take that lightly. I think it's a gift that I try to share every day with as many people as possible.
I'm going to spend the rest of the night thinking what my superpower is.
I do believe everybody has something that separates them from somebody else. We're all unique in our own way.
I love it. You know what, Jim? This has been so fun. Thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing your story. You get one more question. You can't go anywhere. Oh. I think you've already given us so many little pieces of the one thing that matters. And it might be, living in your gift or figuring out your superpower. But what is the one thing you want the listener to walk away from today's conversation with?
Oh, my goodness. It's something that maybe I haven't said yet, but kind of is the gist of other things that I've touched upon. We have one life. And for me, it's about trying to live every day kind of like it's your last. It's a very cliche thing that you've heard a million times from other people. But that's something I really like to leave people with, is you have one life. We owe it to ourselves to try to live every day like it could be our last, and to do what really inspires us. Life is short. I've been reminded of this a lot lately. I think we all have with the pandemic, especially. And we need to be aware of this and not have it be something that we obsess about in a negative way, but think about and remind us and try to gets us to move forward every day with doing what really inspires us and moves us.
I love it. Hey, Jim, it was so good to talk to you. I hope that the listeners have a chance to go think about what inspires and moves them and what their superpower is. But I wish you the very best as you go on doing amazing things with Key of Awesome Music. We'll go start following you and see what's up.
Thank you. It was so nice for you to have me. It was a lot of fun. I enjoy talking about this immensely.
Well, your passion is evident. Thank you. Okay, what is your superpower? What is that thing that you are just so excited that you can't wait to do every day? You just got to find out what you like. Are you doing what you like? Awesome. Are you bringing what the people around you want to hear and see? Are you taking the time to ask the questions? You, my friend, are awesome. Just like the Key of Awesome Music. It's such a great reminder that music, it has a positive impact and can be just so joyful. I hope that you have enjoyed learning all about Jim Gaven and the Key of Awesome Music. I hope you know, my friend, that you matter. We all know that music matters, especially whatever cool superpower or talent you have. And I'll see you next time on the Music That Matters podcast.